So, this is our first unit, Western Expansion. This is a unit talking about how we fulfilled our manifest destiny, God's given plan for the states to stretch from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific coast. Some beautiful scenery out west. This is actually a picture that I took at Yellowstone on a trip in June. So still snow on the ground, and we had to go to Walmart get winterish clothes because we had packed our shorts and t-shirts. It's the Badlands of South Dakota. A lot of the Indians from the western area were sent to the Badlands from Colorado and Washington, Oregon, California. Very large reservation, Dakota. Grand Tetons up towards the north. Just beautiful, beautiful scenery. Lots of fishing, lots of national parks that we're going to talk about that we can thank Theodore Roosevelt. I have never seen a redwood. That's on my bucket list. They say they're as big around as this classroom, that you could actually drive a car through a couple of those redwoods. They're so beautiful and so big, and hundreds and hundreds and years old. So this is like the sky of the Old West. It drew people for many, many reasons, some to farm, some to mine, and of course the cattlemen. And who is going to be in the way? This is the Great Grand Canyon. I did get to see this a couple of years ago, and it's absolutely amazing. I'd only seen it from the air before, but if you've never been, I suggest that you try to make a trip to the Grand Canyon. It's just an amazing, amazing piece of. This looks like they just kind of picked up these flat rocks and set them up, and apparently, those of you who have had Mrs. Pomeroy said that they were actually created by glaciers pushing them. And this is the Great Crater Lake in Oregon. It's the deepest lake in North America. There's only one larger than it, and that is in Russia. And this is just an amazing, cold, deep and clear edifice that was years and years and years ago. Sorry, years and years ago, volcanic. And of course, this is Pike's Peak, the second major gold discovery. First, of course, as you know, Sutter's Mill in California. Pike's Peak is in Colorado. Very close to where the Air Force Academy is. And this is the first main point that they talk about in our curriculum, the Great American Desert. This is the area kind of between the fertile Nebraska, Iowa area and California. And basically it's going to be the last area that is going to be settled. So, for my live kids, list in as many Western states as you possibly can in 60 seconds. And for my virtual kids, think about this, okay? How many Western states can you name in 60 seconds? Okay. This is the area we're talking about when we talk about the Great American Desert. Now you have some major cities there. You've got Tucson, Arizona, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Scottsdale, you've got Denver, of course in Nevada, you've got Las Vegas. But traveling across this area, this was pretty desolate. This shows the settlement in the West. Number one, of course, the most fertile ground. Number two, once gold is found, people flocked to California, but they were also there before that because of the coastline. So you've got fishing, you've got up north fur trapping, which was a huge industry. They almost trapped all of the beaver and made them an endangered species. And of course, the growing in this area. This is huge area for avocados and lettuce and all sorts of produce. And this, of course, is going to set up for the migrant workers from Mexico coming up and picking. So for your split notes that we're going to be talking about, we put a main point on the left-hand side, and we describe on the right-hand side. And I'm going to embed a document with split notes, or you can take them yourself on your own paper. So the main point on this would be Great American Desert. And the description would be the last section in the United States to be settled, and a moniker or a nickname that meant really, really, really bad land. So how did we get it all? Goes all the way back to Thomas Jefferson. And of course, Thomas Jefferson, founding father, writer of the Declaration of Independence. But in 1800, he was trying to purchase this area, the New Orleans. We had gone all the way to the Mississippi River. We wanted to ship down, but the problem was France controlled all the shipping through New Orleans into the Gulf of Mexico. So it was imperative at this time to try and secure the rights so we could ship down the Mississippi. So what we wanted was the Port of New Orleans. And what he did was send two guys, Robert Livingston and James Monroe, future president, to France to talk to the guy who owned it at the time, and that happened to be a guy named Napoleon Bonaparte. So Napoleon Bonaparte, we always think of him as the little guy. He's the leader of France, actually wanted to conquer the world, and we send these two guys over to negotiate for the Port of New Orleans. But Napoleon had been having some, and this is not working. One of the problems was it's supposed to buzz now. It's supposed to go buzz. One of the problems was he had troops in the Dominican Republic, in Haiti, in Mobile. And they were coming down. They were getting sick with yellow fever. He also had a rebellion going on in Haiti, a slave rebellion, and they were winning. So Napoleon meets with our two representatives, and he's like, hey, I'm trying to take over the world, and my troops are distracted here, so I would like to get rid of it all for the time. So he makes a deal, and he said, just take it all. And for $15 million, we end up with 828,000 square miles of territory to the west of the Mississippi and the Port of New Orleans. One of the biggest land purchases, the most, well, you can imagine $15 million doesn't buy even close to that now. We are going to double the size of the United States. So, what are you going to write? Louisiana Purchase. Why did he sell? Number one, he's trying to conquer the world. He needed the money. Number two, it was far away. He was he's going to go into Russia. He is fighting England, and he has got all this other stuff going on. So he needed the money. It was hard to defend. He couldn't win it with that Haitian slave rebellion. The yellow fever killed his troops, and he was in a war with England and needed his troops back to fight. So this is what we end up with. This is doubling the size of the United States, and now part of our manifest destiny has been fulfilled. Okay, this is just another map showing how huge this purchase was. And now we could lose it all with a war with England. If we lost it, would we have to give it all back? Okay, so England, of course, now stop and think about this. We have only been a country at this point for about 40 years. And England has been impressing our sailors, stopping our ships at sea. We end up going to war with England, and we could lose all this, become a colony again if England won. So the final battle, the Battle of New Orleans. This is the controversial Jackson Square with Andrew Jackson. So what happens with the Battle of New Orleans? Andrew Jackson gathers up pirates, freed slaves, anybody he can find, ragtag volunteer army from Tennessee, Kentucky, Louisiana, and he sets up a parapet and defends New Orleans, and he defeats the British. So this is the War of 1812 by Johnny Horton, and he is a native Louisiana boy. We win. Louisiana becomes a state. This is what the territory now looks like after this War of 1812. Louisiana becomes a state right during the war. Okay, so this is it, and all of this is wide open territory. Our next acquisition is the Adams-Onis Treaty. Okay, so this is going to be one of your main points. Adams-Onis Treaty. This is negotiated by John Quincy Adams, and we get Florida. So now we're going to have the whole East Coast. Good story with that. Andrew Jackson had gone into Florida because slaves were escaping into Florida and joining up with Indians. Spain wasn't doing anything about it. Jackson took it upon himself basically to go in, and in the process he ends up hanging a couple of Englishmen that are saying, what are you doing in here? And it almost becomes a war against Spain and a war against England again. So John Quincy Adams negotiates, and we end up paying Spain a little bit of money and getting all of Florida. Okay, so this is what we look like now. We've got the whole East Coast. We've got all of the Louisiana Purchase. Okay, and we're looking for more. So that's all.